Welcome to the Spotlight Dialogue episode 23, the evening show about circular economy, where this episode we will take this dialogue. Look for fundraising is a sure way to appear in the forefront of sustainability and keep asking questions. I'm your host, Stephen Poon. Good evening to all the audience tuning in. The Spotlight Dialogue episode 23 is brought to you by the regular team of the Special Interest Group in Circular Economy from Integrated Sustainability and Urban Creativity Center, acronym as ISUC, as known as ISUC, at Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, APU. Later on, we will hear from Elaine Lokman, CEO and co-founder of Atta Plus. For those of you who don't know, she began her career in Petronas and further at Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC, Malaysia Debt Ventures, Digital Telecommunication, and Packet One Networks until she co-founded Atta Plus in 2015. She is currently a council member for the Malaysian Business Angel Network, MBAN, the president of the Registered Digital Markets Association Malaysia, advisor to Women in Tech Malaysia chapter, independent board member of Reservoir Link Berhad, main board of KLSE, Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange, which is as known as and also known as Bursa Malaysia. Propel Global Berhad, main board also KLSE, Lead Technology Incorporated, Nasdaq listed, and also University Tun Hussein on Malaysia. Elaine is also on the board of trustees for Khazanah Foundation, Prosperity Development Foundation, and KRU Foundation. She was awarded the BERG 2019 Women Icons Malaysia and also the 2020-2021 batch of the Digarati 50 for her exceptional contribution to Malaysia's digital economy. Luckily, Elaine Lokman is on hand to give us a quick lowdown on the topic from the fundraising to capital perspective, how ESG can create value for SMEs. So, please welcome Elaine Lokman. Hi, Elaine. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Stephen. How are you?
Oh gosh, what an evening, what a day. Okay, great. So, how are you actually? How have you been doing the whole day?
It's been pretty hectic actually. The last few weeks has been quite crazy, and typically, I think this is how it is in our industry. Like at the end of Q3 and Q4 is extremely hectic. So
Okay.
that's the life of of a fintech company.
Well, we are still in Q3, isn't it? We are going to Q4, but not Q4 yet.
Correct. But
So,
yeah.
okay, yeah. By the way, so what do you think of what is the current state of the equity market today?
I mean, specific to, I think, equity crowdfunding, I would say there's still a lot of opportunities, a lot of excitement, generally, because we are seeing more and more matured SMEs considering equity crowdfunding as a viable fundraising channel, mainly because the Securities Commission of Malaysia has increased the total fundraising or maximum fundraising amount up to 20 million ringgit. So it used to be, playground for, I would say, early stage startup businesses. But now you're seeing much more mature businesses, even some companies that's going for pre-IPO, looking at equity crowdfunding as a feasible pre-IPO fundraising channel, prior to their listing, be it in Malaysia or elsewhere. Yeah, that is specific to equity crowdfunding. And I think the opportunity is still huge, mainly also because there's a lot of people out there, especially the public, who are still pretty ignorant about the availability of this capital market product to them. So in essence, you can become, I would say the slogan could be everyone can invest,
Yeah, it's kind of like plagiarism now.
with,
Everyone can invest. Sounds very familiar.
yeah, but invest, I guess, with peace of mind, because mission.
Okay. Elaine, yeah, are you in now? Okay, now you were just a little bit frozen a bit earlier
Okay,
on.
so I think I
Okay.
was saying, if everyone can invest, because invest with peace of mind, because if these businesses go through our platform or equity crowdfunding platform regulated by the Securities Commission, so the platforms, the operators would have done sound due diligence on these businesses, because most of the time I would say retail investors wouldn't know how to assess businesses, right? And you need to make sure that the value proposition, the information that they are publishing online, is correct and true and proper, with proper disclosures. So the crowdfunding platforms will ensure all these things are done. And having said that, the entry point can be super affordable compared to if any retail investors were to invest in, for example, public listed businesses. Yeah. So the smallest investment to date, what do you think? Dr. Stephen, in Malaysia, what was the smallest investment accepted by a business in equity crowdfunding?
Wow, it really depends actually in what sector you're looking at, because there's a many different type of the investment can be done. People looking of course it's also different kind of level of people how they deal with the investment. I think Elaine, there's a lot to share actually. So okay, let's set the leeway. And how can we get into this our dialogue for today, which is pertaining to the topic. Okay, let's set this. There seems little doubt that ESG consideration will continue to grow for all businesses, large or small, which is those are the things which is I just mentioned earlier on. It really depends on that. With growing awareness of green venture capital investing and impact investing being more accessible, businesses are being driven to seriously consider their stance on ESG. So including ESG into business essentially means becoming an organization that is focused on the purpose and values. So, Elaine, what is your perception of approach to ESG-driven investing?
So you're talking about investing specific, yeah, not from the business perspective.
No, ESG-driven investing, yeah.
Okay, so I think let's take a step back. I think if you look at the history of ESG investing, not just in Malaysia but in the region, I guess this started to get hot only in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Prior to that, you would find that I think as a company, for us, we were already looking at or very cognizant and aware of ESG investing and impact investing, of it becoming more mainstream in the West. Yeah, and it started out, I would say, maybe about even pre-COVID days. Yeah, so about 5 years ago. But it has since, grown into, the awareness is much more with, climate change and global warming. And also, if you look at what does ESG stands for? Environmental, social, and governance. Yeah, and I think it all started, I think, specifically with the public listed entities. Yeah. I think investors and also in terms of the regulators are very in terms of disclosures, in terms of governance. I think it started, and governance has always been there. From the compliance and governance perspective, that is the utmost priority and a must for a business when you look into even considering listing, right, of a company going public, because you must remember, as a business owner, you are actually presenting yourself to the public because you're fundraising from the public, and hence the regulator has to ensure that everything is already in place. Okay, be it your procurement, your human resource. You're looking at investing, looking at your people, how you treat your people. So it started off with, I would say, governance. Okay. Then I think beyond that, with the advent of, or with the evolution of, and also the impact on the world, yeah, with regards to global changes, in social structures, also the disparity between the middle income and upper class, and over and above that, you look into climate changes. So hence the other I would say metrics from environmental and social actually came about. So hence as a business, it's also important in terms of looking at the perspective of how you deliver your products and services, to the market, the whole entire value chain, of the delivery of the product and services, from the production perspective, right down to delivery. Okay, even the source of supply. That's number one. Number two, from the social perspective, is how you treat your people internally and externally. Yeah, internally, how human are you as a company? Are you a fair employer? Do you treat your people fairly? Do you have specific policies in place in terms of, hiring, recognizing contribution, performance? Do you provide, stock options? And how do you distribute that? Beyond that, externally, in terms of specific to how you treat your suppliers, yeah, whether do you get involved into child labor, for example, and do you pay fair wages, for those that you employ, or in terms of sourcing, in especially the underdeveloped nations. Yeah, you see, you can get all the examples. I think, for example, I think one of the very popular, I don't want to mention names, one of the popular brands, sports brands, I think got heavily penalized. Yeah. When they were found to actually really underpay, the wages of some of their labor resources, in those underdeveloped nations, and also there were child labor involved in those countries. Yeah, so I think all this will come into play, and the public is much more sensitive now towards those, I would say, subject matter, and that would hurt the brand. Yeah, so as a business, there's two parts, right? One is actually your financial performance, okay, but it is at the same time the brand value and brand equity matters. Yeah, so the brand value, brand equity, and these are intangibles, and this is where there would need to be other metrics, depending on your business, of course, that a company needs to actually identify in order to measure some of these intangibles. Yeah.
Okay, Elaine, let's take the temperature of the upper levels of the Asian wealth market in terms of the high net worth, which is we call this a HMW, and the ultra high net worth, which is a UHNW, clients and the relationship to the ESG, and more broadly investing for the impact and sustainability. So, Elaine, what are your overall expectations for ESG driven investing in the next 10 years from the viewpoint of the private HNW, which is the high net worth, and the UHNW, which is I mentioned earlier on, the ultra high net worth clients in this region specifically?
Yeah, I think I think there's two parts there, because I think if you're talking about the ultra high net worth, they will start mostly, they won't themselves invest directly. It will most likely be investing into funds. Yeah, so this will be your limited partners, who will be channeling their funds into specific funds that look into ESG investing, or fund managers. Yeah, and it can be it can be related to climate. It can be related to in terms of more diversified and more inclusive. So we are looking at, me personally, I think there will be in the next few years setup of more funds focused on, for example, female founded businesses. Yeah, because it has been proven in the last few years that female founded businesses tend to produce higher ROIs and better returns for funds, in terms of when they invest. So that's something that that is, I think, going to be, we're going to see a lot more in the next few years. I think specific to impact, of course, you're looking at, I think, interestingly, even Malaysia is looking into this. I think a more unique and niche technologies,
Mhm.
technologies like graphene.
Mhm.
I think that graphene has got a lot of potential, and is a big untapped market. Yeah, and of course, you would have the usual suspects of the solar and also biomass
Mhm.
sector.
The
Uh,
energy, yeah.
yeah, the energy sector. And
Mhm.
those will prove to be more popular lah. Still
Mhm.
popular.
Yeah, it is coming up. Okay, so
Yeah.
Elaine, let's look at the hurdles and the shortcoming prospects. Do you think HNW and UHNW private clients in this region are well informed and understand what ESG based investing is about?
I think there still needs to be a lot of education and awareness.
Mhm.
However, having said that, I think with you know the introduction of AI reporting, AI driven
Mhm.
reporting, in not just ESG investing, in generally the investing space, I think it will actually bring up the education awareness of these investors much faster, in a much
Mhm.
faster ways, because of the availability of I guess AI driven reports, and is more easily accessible and more affordable. Yeah, and I think that will actually, if you ask me, drive more investing activities, not just for high net worth individuals or even the ultra high net worth, but also to retail investors.
Mm.
Because if these reports are being made available much more easily and accessible to them, and cheaper, because I think if you look at the way the development of AI has just accelerated over the last 6 months or the last
Yep.
12 months, right? I think there's more and more people who would understand this industry much better, a lot better.
It is a very obvious development right after the pandemic. So it's really
Absolutely.
you guys it's really obvious for that. Okay, Elaine, ESG driven investing in Asia. I'm going to bring you to the larger context now.
Mm,
ESG driven investing in Asia is engaging more and more advocates and supporters. But for private clients, investor to take the next step, there must be the greater global standardization, more regulatory support, and greater understanding amongst those private investors, and more evidence that this will genuinely help their portfolios outperform as well as mitigate risk.
mm.
So, which types of individual investor clients in Asia are so far the most interested in and active in ESG driven investing?
Sorry, what do you mean by that? So I'm a bit confused.
So I'm looking for what type of individual investor, especially in Asia Pacific region, they are more interested in the active and ESG driven investing. What type of the investor, according
um,
to your experience?
Yeah, I think I mean this is a very interesting question, because I think we used to think that investors who are typically more interested in so-called non-impact,
Mhm,
more traditional,
mhm,
would not be interested. For
mhm,
example, in the past, perhaps you have investors who are more interested in maybe technology, or even the tech space,
mhm,
or even oil and gas, yeah,
mhm,
or commodities, for that matter, right? Yeah.
mhm,
But I think, interestingly, I think over the years, I would say some of these investors, um, I wouldn't say the older generation, but I would say the second and third generation, you know, they are the ones who are more sensitive and more conscientious about impact. Yeah. And I see the trend actually moving towards to the younger generation and the second and third tier of the old monies. Yeah. So they are the ones who are looking at this ESG investing mainly because they see the long-term sustainability and growth of business. So it is at the end of the day going back to the sustainability element. And if these businesses do not actually evolve, I mean, even if you're talking about traditional businesses, they need to actually now really seriously look into looking at themselves and looking at how inverted commas ESG are they, whether there's any component, because moving forward into the future, this is going to be a key decision-making factor for investors moving forward. If you look at how Bursa is also taking the lead with Securities Commission,
it is. Yeah.
with making sure that each public listed company would have all their policies in place and identify the metrics, and they have to actually include that reporting in their annual report. Yeah, and Bursa is giving 2 years for these businesses to get that ready. So having said that, like I mentioned, the investor community has already started to look into this. And if you look at starting from the last few years, right, the number of ESG related or even theme capital market conferences, and it's still happening until today. In fact, I think in Sarawak, I think they've just finished a huge conference on how the state government, the stance of the state government in terms of climate change, impact investing. So and even Penang, I think I gave a talk in a Penang Green Tech conference towards the end of last year. So so in terms of taking the lead, I think from the regulator perspective, from government's perspective, they've already setting the right framework. And even if you talk about fund managers, asset fund managers, they have also started to look at ESG products, for their clients, and seeking, specific returns and so on.
Right, Elaine. According to your observation, which types of wealthier private clients are now or are likely to be the most active in ESG centric investing? Why?
I think when you talk about types, if you ask me, generally, I guess female investors tend to be, I guess, geared towards this. Yeah. For I guess for emotive reasons. But
it always works, isn't it?
but having said that, right, those I would say traditional or more conventional investor communities, I think they see the value and they understand in terms of when you talk about the governance, there's no issue, right? It's very clear. There is a must-have, for all businesses, but I think when you talk about the E and the S, so I guess when it comes to social, environmental, I guess those that's more community-driven, those investors who who are very much entrenched in communities, and it's very hard to say because, and I always say this, right? Sometimes you can never tell whether a person would actually invest in like impact investing, even though he or she has never done so, even in their past life. But for whatever reason, if the person can see the value, especially sustainability in the long run, and how it value for a business, I think is something that investors always look towards. And this is why I say again, it comes down to also data, right?
Yep.
Data is very important. So, which is why I feel that AI is going to play a very important role, because AI technologies, and especially sophisticated AI technologies, it can actually pull a lot of data points from many facets, whether it's horizontal or vertical, and it can crawl across the net in many data sources to actually pull out and come up with potential projections, and insights for a particular business or entities that particular investor is interested in.
Okay, Elaine, let's look at the Malaysian context. In the wealth management industry in Malaysia, which organization do you think are leading the way in terms of communicating and promoting ESG-driven investing?
For me now, in my space, I see a lot of it is actually being driven by Securities Commission through their through SIDC, which is their education arm. Okay, they've done a lot of workshops. They've even done conferences a couple of years ago, whereby I was a speaker more on the fintech angle. They've done a lot of work even until today. They've continued to do that relentlessly. So they are one of the, I would say, at the forefronts. In fact, Securities Commission and also Bank Negara, they've formed a joint committee on ESG, specifically to create awareness amongst investors, as well as business owners, because business owners, especially SMEs, are still, I guess to them is, why should I get involved in this? What is it? What does it mean to me? But I think for SMEs, they need to be aware that moving forward into the future, if they want to look into business sustainability, and in the longer run, if they have listing aspirations, or even not even listing, but if they want to raise funds in the, whether it's series or pre-series A, series A, B, C, D, E, they need to seriously look at their value system and what would ESG mean to their company, because investors would look at that. Yeah, it's something that really need to be looked at. And I think if you ask me, I'm not too worried about, I guess, for the larger corporations perspective. Yeah. But I think a lot of education awareness, which I don't see it right now, needs to be done for the SMEs. The SMEs, is very much lacking. I don't see that, and they don't understand probably why they need or why they even need to do it. There's no drive for them to do it, But I think eventually, it would have to somehow, because I think moving forward, there will be policies, set in place, even from, I guess, from accessibility of funds, loans, to getting contracts, because there will be certain parameters that I guess buyers look for, or even consumers for that matter. Yeah.
Okay, a strong ESG proposition becomes more compelling according to your which emphasis. An understanding of why this criteria linked to value creation is less comprehensive. So how exactly does a strong ESG proposition make financial sense?
Yeah, I think you have to go back to fundamentals. Okay, so first and foremost, I think it is very clearly, financial performance, first and foremost. And when you talk about financial performance, the most basic is really your policies and your governance on how, as a company, what sort of a governance do you have, in your company? As simple as, procurement systems, how you select suppliers. I mean, of course, when you're a small entity, you probably have very little because you're flat, right? But as the company gets bigger, you need to have all that in place, especially if you're a public company, because you're looking at utilizing public funds, yeah, for the growth and expansion of your business. And the objective is actually to create more value so that you can actually create profitability and sustainability for the company, so that you can give returns to your shareholders. Okay, so that's one aspect. But like I mentioned, that just that does not that's not the only factor. Okay, and again, as a business, you need to look at your product and services. Okay, so let's look at internal first. So we talk about governance specific to the procurement of stuff. Number two is in terms of human resource policies. All that has to be in order. All that has to be in place, because when you talk about whistleblowing, it's not about just internal, but it can also be external. So the internal one, you have to take care. Staff must be happy. You must actually develop talent, provide very clear, recognition when they perform, and when they don't perform, what you do, in terms of taking care of the team, and so on and so forth. Thirdly, looking at supply chain as well, making sure in terms of if you're offering key products and services, the sources of your raw materials, for example, where is it coming from? Is it fair trade? How are you making sure that at the end of the day, your end customer gets good value? Yeah. How do you treat your suppliers? How you treat your employees, or even your outsourced parties? I think I talked about that. But at the end of the day, or even the content, if you look at recently, right? A very simple example. Okay, there was a case of a very prominent football player, right? He was about to be interviewed by the media, and he's very particular about health, right? And on the table was a drink with a very high sugar content. I think you know what I'm talking about. And pushed it aside, and just drank water, right? And because of his action, it the company, that particular brand, lost billions just overnight because of that action. So I think at the end of the day, the message there is that you want to make sure that you actually give, because you're talking about especially now, healthcare cost is increasing, and a lot of people are not taking care of themselves. So you have to be responsible, of the community. So how responsible are you to community? So food is a very interesting. We talk about when you talk about F&B, right? How responsible are F&B brands, yeah, to their customers, because at the end of the day, you're looking at the health and well-being of a customer, and typically high sugar products, of course, for the company, they would say, okay, it's up to the customer's prerogative whether to buy or not. Yeah. But if the customer is not disciplined enough as a person to know when to stop,
it's true. Actually, getting the right spokesperson is really important.
Exactly.
Otherwise, right, you have to get some people really enjoy that kind of high sugar drinks in order to get into that. Otherwise, right, you're gonna flunk the whole thing.
Correct. So you just rightfully said there, because as the business, everything and anything that you do, you have to watch. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it shouldn't be you're doing it just, I mean, if you look at some
Mm.
business, right, it's all, I guess, for the lack of a better term, greenwashing. They show that they are green, but that's not green.
Yeah. A lot of
Because
cliche going on, isn't it? Okay.
to show it's authentic. And let me add
Yeah.
this, yeah.
Mhm.
So and every business has to be conscientious and be very careful because of
Mm.
digital and social media. Yeah. Because if something, and then because people are very observant, so
Yeah, it is.
anything that you do, the next thing you know is all splashed on social media, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
So and netizens are not very forgiving. Yeah.
Yeah. And also only a few seconds. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just to blow out the whole world. Okay. Elaine, key ESG consideration for buyers. Let's look at this.
Mm,
In any business sale process, you talk about retails earlier on quite a few times, a
mm,
buyer will look to ensure that the target's procedures and operation are thoroughly understood, and ESG consideration are forming an increasingly important part of the due diligence exercise.
mm.
So there are several sustainability related factors that a buyer will consider throughout any deal process. So what does ESG strategies have to target in place?
So you're talking about from the business perspective, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So I think at the end of the day, when you talk about a buyer, right? So let's look at two aspects of what buyer is. So buyer can be from the investor perspective, or
Mhm.
buyer can be a retail consumer of a product or service. Yeah. I think for a product or service, um, I think is um, for both investor and product and service, I think is like I mentioned earlier. It's really in terms of um, how one is the internal values of how you produce such a product or service. How is it done? How is it? Whether the I think I mentioned a few metrics earlier. The fair trade. How you treat your where the sources of product is from. And whether you're giving fair value to the end user.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you ask me, at the end of the day, I think technology also plays a big role in this as well. Yeah. If you look at some of those asset-like businesses, yeah, like the likes of Grab or Airbnb,
Mhm.
that's also very interesting. But having said that, even Grab, I think consumers are also looking at how well do they treat the riders,
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
So like I mentioned, I think as the younger generations voices becoming stronger, because eventually, like people like, I suppose, like you and I, we are considered, the past by that time. Yeah. So
You're putting us in category.
So we are going to, I guess phase out, and then the
Okay,
younger
okay,
batch will coming in, right? So
okay, okay.
these are the I guess the younger generation who's more critical,
Mm,
they
mhm.
scrutinize,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, they are.
and
Yeah.
that's one. Number two, as technology actually um, uh, facilitate greater transparency, yeah,
Mm,
of business activities, that's when you have to be careful, because
mhm,
whereby this is where all your actions, how you treat, what you report in is going to be more and more transparent to the consumer, whether it's the
mhm,
investor or
mhm.
a buyer. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Elaine, does the target's ESG policy align with the buyer's own policies? If not, can the target efficiently and effectively integrate this into a single coherent strategy over time?
I think if you look at how specific to the capital market, I think the regulator are taking all that into account. So from that perspective, I think there will be no issue on that note. Yeah, but if you look at even the consumer, if you look at see for example labels, right? So even you look at labels, right? Let's take the easiest is food lah, yeah, food labels. Everything has to be there because it is required for a company to wanting to produce and wanting to sell it in a retail market. The packaging has got to follow certain guidelines. Yeah, things like for example, the content of the products. The sugar content, carbohydrates, fats, proteins have to be there. Where is it manufactured? And I think over time there's going to be more and more items there that would be actually required by the approval and regulators, the approving authorities, that you need to actually report, yeah, and make it clear, so that the consumer, will make the right informed decision, whether to actually subscribe or even purchase a product or service. And I think this cuts across the board, whether you're talking about investment product or even something that you just purchase over the shelf, over the counter. Yeah. That's my perspective over time. And technology will actually facilitate all this very easily.
Okay, Elaine, in your point of view, has the target incurred any ESG-related liabilities, like for instance, like fines, penalties in the past? If so, has there been any reputational damage as a result? And has the target taken appropriate corrective action to mitigate potential future breaches or liabilities?
Yeah, I think in this perspective, right, it is more towards I think specific, if I'm not mistaken, I would say the first thing is actually for a huge company or a brand name, and specifically for those that's listed in the public market, is that if any negativity of such actually is reported, the first thing that will be impacted is actually the share price. So
it is. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that is big. Okay, that is huge. So, as you're aware, the stock market is very, very sensitive.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very sensitive, and it's all about market sentiment, right?
Yeah, it is.
And
Yes.
yeah, you just have to hear one negative notion, and then the next thing everything.
Yeah, just slope. Yeah, I know that. Whoa, what happened today? What happened yesterday?
Exactly. So that is the most apparent. But of course, I believe in certain jurisdictions, there have been hefty fines and penalties because of misconduct or abusive activities or for whatever reason. I don't have examples, but I've heard of a few. I cannot pinpoint exactly, but
Okay,
yes, they have been. So yeah. So but I think, like I mentioned again, if now because you talk about supply chain also becoming more and more transparent, also much more transparent also to regulators. So I think businesses are actually cleaning up their act as well. Yeah, make sure they have everything in order, so that they treat everybody fairly, fair value, fair fair employment, fair trade, and so on and so
I
forth.
think they have no choice. They have to do this because
Yes,
everything is because nowadays everything is under the sun. It's not like you can
correct.
hide behind the carpet. You cannot do this anymore. So they have no choice. They have to do it. Okay,
Correct.
Elaine. Let's look at the. Let's. I think it's a time to take a look at the question posted by the audience.
Mm.
I have seen one question here. Let's look at the question. Question from the audience. How can you define and measure the ESG performance of a company?
Yeah,
Can we have the question posted, please? Yeah.
yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. I think in some parts of
Mm,
our conversation, right? So in the first place, I think the easiest would be number one is looking at the performance, business performance,
mm,
financial
mm,
performance of the business. Okay, that is financial performance normally is the easiest. Okay, number one. Number two, I think at the end of the day is what other, as a business, you also need to look at your other metrics that contributes to your E or your S. Yeah. And this one is highly dependent on the different businesses. In fact, I think if you look at, there's no one particular standard metric in the market that you can benchmark against. There's quite a number out there, but I think as a business, you need to decide which ones you want to follow. Specific to SMEs, I think you just need to start from small. Don't have
mm,
to push yourself, but you need to understand what are the key metrics in terms of your ESG metrics. Yeah,
mm,
in your company, whether is it more some don't even have E or don't even have S.
mm, mm,
Some are not indirect. Of course, governance is the most direct lah. Every
mm,
company have that a certain level of policies, in place, to have good governance. Yeah, the basic governance has to be there. No matter how small you are. But E and S is not for everybody. But I guess over and above the G is how you treat your employees. That is utmost importance. Yeah, how you develop talents. Yeah, because when you have good human resource policies and how you treat your employees, you can also attract good talents to the
mm,
company. Yeah, but again, this is something very subjective, very difficult
mm.
for us to pinpoint a single metric in terms of performance measurement.
So, okay, I'm gonna tap into that question just now earlier on, which is the question posted by the audience. How can you define and measure the ESG performance of a company? Okay,
Mm.
from my point of view, is there any index which can be followed when we talk about measurement? So, and of course, the ESG is very new, so
Mm.
everyone doing their own. There's no benchmark at the moment. So
Mm.
everyone talk about their ESG prospect. The policy is better than everybody else. So,
Mm.
do you think the current index, if there is, right, is this
Mm.
gonna be like forever usage, or is this gonna be evolve along the way? Because it depends on the development of the technological advancement and also the climate change, and also you mentioned about the energy. So, what is your point of view on that?
Yeah, I think you're right there, Professor Stephen. Okay, because I think for me is I think this is still an area that's relatively new. Okay, and I think for that, because we're seeing more and more developments in this
Mm,
area, I think it will continuously evolve and become more refined over time. And then I think the more data we get, uh, because I think we have yet it's still quite nascent, I suppose. You know,
Mm.
at this
Yeah,
stage.
yeah.
I think we need more and more data, so that it can come to a certain level whereby there's certain standardization and certain standard that we can follow globally. You know, at the moment
Yeah, yeah.
there's not one single standard, so to
Yeah,
speak.
exactly. There's a no standardization. There's everybody talk about themselves. That they are good. They are better than everybody else. So it's just like
Correct.
there's a lot of all these confusion sometimes. Especially
Yeah,
those are the big corporations. They really work out their own policy, their own
yeah,
standardization. Then they call themselves this is standard. So yes, it is. So I'm looking forward to all this going to be settled down along the way. Of course, this evolution is really based upon the technological advancement development as well as the energy development, which is this is the current hot topic at the moment. Energy is going to be which
yeah.
is growing and blow out to the certain extent. Okay, let's come back to our dialogue here. All right, and now we are going to change the gears a little bit. So we have been talking about and all the concerns that we have been discussing on the show. So I would like you to be able to share your ideas and see what other listener are thinking about that in a little bit. So major fundraising campaigns for special initiative are too important to treat as a rush job. They deserve the same care as any of the organization's marketing projects. By dedicating the right amount of the time and strategic focus on the capital campaign, so organization and its fundraising have much stronger chances of reaching the goals. So how will they tell their organization story in this context?
Especially with ESG.
Yep.
Okay, I think
From the fund, which is the all these major fundraising campaign, especially.
yeah. I know. I think it will be the same as how you sell any other story telling. When you fundraise, okay. But I think it's not just about the story; it's the storyteller.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's good one.
Yeah.
Right.
You can have the best storytelling outline. Okay.
Mhm.
You can have the best story, but if your storyteller sucks, also not good. So you need to
Oh,
have
you
you
flung
need
the
to
whole thing
have
again.
yeah you can't have a storyteller, for example, right? You have a script, and then it's a great script, but then the storyteller is just inverted commas, you know memorizing the script and just reading the script. It
Mm,
doesn't work that way. You need a
mm.
storyteller that's convincing, that's engaging, that has flair, that can tell,
Emotions. Yeah.
yes, that can engage the audience. And the other thing is, it's very important when you are actually pitching uh, to an investor or to investors. You need to understand the investor himself or in that
Mm,
particular group. Find out what's the background, uh, what makes them tick, look at their previous investments. I mean, it's a little bit like if you watch Shark Tank, right? So I
mhm,
always like to use Shark Tank as an example, because if you look at the sharks, all the 4 or 5 sharks, they all have different characteristics and different backgrounds,
mhm,
yeah, and different investments that they invest in, and different backgrounds. Some of them, for example, Robert, he uh, he came from a poor background, immigrant family. Then you have Mr. Wonderful, who's very sarcastic all the time. Very full of himself. Then you have Laurie, who
I like that
who's
character. That's so
exactly,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Laurie is very good at at
Uh-huh.
TV, and she comes from that background. And then you have Mark Cuban, who's really into the sexy stuff,
Mm,
like sports, entertainment, or even
mhm,
Damon, fashion, and so on. But
mm,
and all of them have different interests. So and when when a company goes into a room, right, and you see all those investor pool, right? You say you're pitching and you have 10, 20 investors in a room, but at the back of your mind, you already know who you're targeting. You want what kind of investors. And if you know that there's a company or individual A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you only want number 1, number 5, number 10, and number 15, for example, because they all have the same kind of like maybe value systems as you and so on. So the way you tell the story must also engage or touch that person, right? Or whoever you're trying to target on. So again, you can have the best storylines, the best structure of the story, but the storyteller is very, very important. And the other thing is that's about pitching, right? The more you pitch, the better you get. It doesn't mean that you pitch first round, first time you just it's a done deal. No, it doesn't happen. Very rare.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah,
Very,
that's the beauty of the pitching. Yeah.
very
Okay.
rare.
In your professional point of view, professional
Mhm.
suggestion, what are the right tools to support this type of fundraising goal?
Um, for me, it's okay. At the end of the day, that there's a few ingredients, right? When you talk about specific to ESG investing. I think the most important is that your business has to demonstrate the impact that you've done. Is not just in terms of profitability, yeah, but you need to be able to highlight the metrics, yeah, contribution factors, how you have impacted, the measurement levels. Okay, that has to be very clearly demonstrated. I think that's very, very important because it is beyond numbers. Of course, I would say it's a must-have. So we don't have to talk about that. But what over and above that? That needs to be demonstrated, and sometimes it doesn't have to be in dollars and cents. Let me give you a simple example. We've had one of our first crowdfunding campaigns is a social enterprise. Okay, so they actually it's a and funnily enough, they're also a crowdfunding platform. So they crowdfund for underserved students, right? Students from poor families, yeah. So underprivileged families. So the thing is, right, the investors who invested in this company, why they invested was because to them, if they invest in this company is going to help these students, because when you give education to the poor, it will take out these families out of out of poverty for generations in the future. Yeah? So that is the impact, because you're looking at giving a better life, to these families. So so for them is that at the end of the day, they were actually acquired, yeah, by another bigger impact company, and what they showed was that the amount raised, to how many beneficiaries, and the number of families into the households, who could benefit from this, and you're talking about over many years over time. So these are some numbers that I think that's important, yeah.
Okay, Elaine, does the budget reflect the level of impact they are looking to achieve?
When you're looking at, but you're talking about the company itself, or you're talking about
Yeah.
Malaysia?
I mean, I'm talking about the company because you talked about impact earlier on. So I think does the budget reflect the level of the impact they are looking to achieve?
I think okay. Unfortunately, specific to the companies right now, the ones that I've seen so far, I think mainly because they are mostly SMEs.
Mm,
At the end of the day, you talk about the present VCs or angels, unfortunately, what they are looking at the moment is still how many X return am I going to get if I invest in business?
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
So typically when you say, okay, I'm fundraising $1 million, okay, R1 million. So R1 million, I'm going to utilize these funds for whatever, whether it's working capital, marketing, R&D, and so on and so forth, right?
mhm,
Uh, and then and this monies will actually be able to grow and expand this business from point A to point B, and with these funds, I'm going to achieve certain level of profitability. It is still very financial driven. And to date, all the business that I've seen
mhm,
through my experience, this is specific to equity crowdfunding, yeah. Um,
mhm,
I have yet to see uh, any non-financial metrics yet.
mhm, mhm.
So far, so far.
Okay, I think a fundraising marketing should be strategic and intentional. After all, so
Yes,
investing in yeah, also investing in the campaign is important. So, but
yes,
effective fundraising initiatives are not defined by the flashiest design or fancy brochure. I think what you just mentioned there. Success
correct,
comes down to clearly conveying the organization story to the right
correct,
audience in a compelling way. So I
correct.
can, which is to put it this way. Okay, Elaine, this is a great thank you so much for giving us the time
And
today from from your busy schedule. I know that you're so busy, you're very hard to get you, but it's really an honor to have you on board for sharing all your expertise. It gave us a lot to think about as well. It is absolute my pleasure indeed, Elaine. I appreciate it.
thank you for inviting. I mean, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to APU and to yourself, Dr. Stephen, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this topic. Thank you very much.
Elaine, I've been looking for you since pandemic until now, but I finally get you. It's very difficult to find you, I know that, but thank you very much. Really,
Thank you very
it's
much.
really an honor. I know that you have
Thank
a
you.
big name in the industry, and
Um,
Central Bank is also looking for you to
oh
set
my
up
God,
this
really?
ESG requirement. It's unbelievable. So it's really an honor. So I think we have much to talk about for the coming future. Thank you very much, Elaine.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend ahead and good Friday tonight. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Right. A little sharing studies here, and some of my own findings, and also some of the discussion with Elaine. Um, SMEs are faced with growing pressure to measure and manage their ESG risk. Being integral part of the supply chain, which is Elaine mentioned that there is growing demand for SMEs to demonstrate greater environmental stewardship and social responsibility from both customers and supplier, particularly those seeking to secure contracts with large companies. The business case for sustainable operation is much stronger than ever and will become even more intense over time. SMEs are the backbone of any economy and the backdrop of entrepreneurship in the country. Here in Malaysia, SMEs enterprise comprise more than 97% of all businesses establishments, contributing to over 38% to our GDP and employing over 48.2% of the workforce. And now it is one of the main pieces in realizing the nation's sustainability agenda. as these SMEs form the majority of the businesses in our nation. Their collective actions hold immense potential to shape our economic trajectory and to contribute to job creation and overall societal well-being. Although SMEs may generally not be subject to mandatory sustainability reporting, many will be affected indirectly via participation in value chains of large companies which have to report on the sustainability performance of their entire value chain, and through financial institutions that have to report on the environmental performance of the finance portfolios, which is Elaine has addressed that. Based on the report by Alliance Bank Malaysia Berhad in collaboration with UN Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei, as well as SME Corporation Malaysia, 60% of SME believe that strengthening ESG practices can increase business opportunities and create long-term value. However, only 28% of SMEs have adopted some elements of ESG practices in their businesses. Well, I think more will need to be done in creating the awareness. So in conclusion, the ecosystem is in place and is being continuously strengthened and refined to support our ambitions of a just and sustainable transition. We are irreversibly orienting towards a more sustainable approach to a business, consumption, and growth, and no market nor business is immune to this change. SMEs continue to participation in value chains, access to finance, and competitiveness will increasingly depend on the business's ability to measure, report, and improve their sustainability performance. With that, Spotlight Dialogue episode is a live podcast organized by the Special Interest Group in Circular Economy from Integrated Sustainability and Urban Creativity Center at Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, APU. To keep up with the show, go to the APU Facebook page. There was our episodes of a truly incredible season we have lined up for all of you. So please be sure to like and follow our APU Facebook and wherever you watch and listen to live podcasts to never miss an episode. If listeners are curious to know more about us or find more information, please drop me a line. Email address has indicated on the right top corner of the screen. Thanks for tuning in. Till then, take care and each other. Have a nice evening and happy weekend ahead.